Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for August 11th, 2021. Well, there are definitely signs of sanity emerging around the world against the Green New Deal, against the fake science of man-made climate change, against the proposals that are coming out from various governments, non-governmental organizations, pushed by people like John Kerry, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, the Biden administration. These are nonsensical proposals based on a fake science which claims that we're about to heat up the earth to the point that mankind will not survive. And the latest example of this was the IPCC report, which came out a couple of days ago, which was hailed by the UN Secretary General Guterres, who said it's a red alert. And he said that this is the last chance we have to address this. Basically taking computer modeling, which is self-fulfilling prophecies. That is, the data they input are designed to produce the conclusion that they have, which is that we must shut down fossil fuel use, shut down all forms of coal, of nuclear, and go to so-called renewables, which will not produce the electricity needed to keep mankind alive. They're also attacking modern agricultural production, which will lead to starvation. So let's take a look at the opposition which is emerging, because it's very promising. And I want to just emphasize that the Schiller Institute is at the forefront of the mobilization against this green Malthusian policy that basically says that we have to reduce the population or else we're going to have a population reduction. The Schiller Institute has a long record associated with Lyndon LaRouche of fighting for the idea that there are no limits to growth because there's no limit to human creativity. And what the IPCC and its adherents argue is that mankind is destroying the planet in order to protect the human race. Well, the whole point of the human race is to perpetuate itself at a growing level of population at an improving standard of living. There's no reason that has to stop, except if you're part of the global bankers that are pushing the Great Reset and the Green New Deal as a radical depopulation measure. So let me just give you some of the examples of what's happening in terms of opposition. The Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, responded to the IPCC report by saying that its targets for carbon dioxide reduction are wrong. He said that this is not really about the environment. All this will have is an effect, tax increase. And he said what's needed is new technology, not elimination of projects such as those that are in Australia that use coal, clean coal, for energy production. He said that the Australians will continue to use coal, they'll continue to use nuclear power, and they're not going to bow down to the dictates of the IPCC. And there's a significant number of parliamentarians who agree with him. Now, in the United Kingdom, remember, a lot of this started with the Prince Philip and then Prince Charles, leading promoters of Malthusian doctrine who think the planet's overpopulated and that we have to protect all other species except human beings. Prince Charles is one of the people who is behind the Great Reset as well as the Green New Deal. Well, the Sunday Telegraph had an article, Prime Minister's Push for Net Zero Plunged into Chaos. And it covers a Treasury Ministry's report which says the obvious, that replacing gas boilers and petroleum usage for automobiles will drive up the costs to far beyond the ability of the average person to cover them. It will impose unaffordable costs on British households and will be politically explosive. Well, of course, what they're hoping for is they can manipulate popular opinion so that people will accept draconian austerity in order to, quote, save the planet, unquote. But most people aren't willing to do that. Most people already are on tight budgets, unable to cover necessities, much less the luxury of an electric car or a modern so-called house that heats itself through solar power, which doesn't work, especially when the sun's not shining. So there's a growing reaction against the Green New Deal from the Tories at precisely the point that Tory party leader Boris Johnson is trying to push through radical changes on environment as the head of the COP26 conference coming up in Glasgow. Now, from India, the environmental minister said India will not sacrifice economic development for decarbonization. They're going to continue to use coal for electricity production. India has a very advanced nuclear energy program. And the Indians are saying, if you're so worried about it in the so-called developed sector, why don't you do something about it? We have to take care of people's needs. And India said it would not join efforts to try and impose these policies on other countries. Then Germany, which is one of the centers of the green policy, there are exposés coming out that show that the recent flooding, which took 190 lives in Germany and Belgium, was not due to global warming, but due to environmentalism, the unwillingness to continue policies of water management and flood control, which are just sensible policies. There's a whole move to say rivers must run freely, creeks must be allowed to run freely, no dams, no dikes, no control. And without this and without dredging, flash flooding can occur anywhere and has nothing to do with global warming. There have been floods in Germany for centuries, including floods much more deep and powerful than the one which just took the lives a couple weeks ago. So the austerity policies, which are covered up by the idea of environmentalism, are what caused the deaths in the flooding. Now, also Die Zeit, one of the leading journals in Germany, had an article that said renewable energy is inadequate. The exit from nuclear and coal will leave an energy production level 40% below what is needed. And they call for reversing the exit from nuclear. Already 11 of the 17 nuclear plants in Germany have been closed, and all the rest of them will be closed by the end of 2022. Meanwhile, wind power production is down 20% in the first half of 2021. How are you going to fuel an industrial economy with wind and solar when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow? Now, there's one more report I have for you from a leading climate scientist named Dr. Willie Soon of the Solar and Stellar Physics Division of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. He's a critic of the whole global warming, man-made global warming theory. He's been attacked for that. They're trying to censor him, to try and drive him out of the academic world. But he just issued a statement debunking the IPCC report. He said, in fact, the cause of the changes in climate is not the man-made activity. It's not the use of combustion engines. It's the fact that the sun is weakening. He said that the climate system is powered 99.1% by the sun's energy. And he went on to say that the sun today is less active than it was in the 1980s and 1990s. And he forecast 30 years of global cooling. And then he makes the point, first of all, let me say, his point is that this has nothing to do with man's manufacturing and production, but has to do with much larger systems, namely the solar system, the solar radiation, and so on. But he's saying then further that cooling is more disastrous than warming, referring to the little ice age of the 1700s, where food production was reduced and you had spread of hunger and disease. What's the solution for something like that? Technology, nuclear technology, development of nuclear fusion. So in every single one of these areas, the solution is the opposite of what the greenies are proposing. Now, the opposition is growing. Join us to defeat the insanity of the Green New Deal and the fake science that's used to push it. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow.